morning, students. I'm Sridevi here, Head of Electrical and Electronics Engineering Section, Department of Technical Education, Telangana. Right? We have started with the course Industrial Management and Entrepreneurship for Diploma final year students. Right? We have already finished with 2 sessions of this course. In the first session, what we have seen is what is business, definition of business, what is academic activity, what is non-academic activity, the distinction between those two, and few examples related to academic and non-academic activities. Right? In the we have also seen some of the features of business in the first session. Right? In the second session, in the yesterday's class, we have seen the various other features of business, right? Actually, we have studied about 11 features of business, right? We have seen the different types of business, and also we have covered what are the various industrial sectors, right? How are the industrial sectors broadly classified, classification of industrial sectors and all, right? Now, today we are going to look at a very interesting topic, a very interesting topic, that is globalization, right? Right. Today we are just going to look at what is globalization. What is we also have a brief look at the history of globalization, and also the need for globalization across the whole world, and also we'll just focus on also on the need for globalization for our country, right? And have an economy depends on globalization. What are the various factors and all we shall see in this session, right? First, we'll see what is globalization. We have seen the modern world is seen as a world without geographical boundaries and any kind of barriers, right? We know that we can buy or sell, our business can happen anywhere across the globe, right? So that is what is globalization. Globalization has been the major force behind this. It is the integration of world economy and exchanging of ideas, products, technologies, etc. Globalization hit India late, but it had a huge impact on the nation's economic policy and also various other aspects. Daily in the newspapers, we'll be studying about this globalization aspect. Our country is purchasing some missiles from Russia, like that. We are banning some China apps, right? Like this. So we import many material, we export what all we have in excess, like that. The exchange of the goods or services, in exchange for money is nothing, is happening only because of globalization, right? It can be defined like this. Globalization is the process of international integration arising from interchange of world views, products, ideas. That only, it's not only goods and services, it also exchanging of interchanging of views, ideas, and other aspects of culture. Globalization means a rapid increase in the share of economic activities taking place across national borders, right? And hence we can call the world has become a single stage, right? We can also say the world has become a single stage where we can exchange anything, right? Right. Integration of economies, the increasing reliance on economies on each other. Because of these various policies of globalization, there is a greater dependence on the economies of one country to the other. The opportunities to be able to buy and sell any product in any country in the world, right? We can, as well as I just told you, we can either import or export, we can buy, we can sell, we can do business in any country, Of course, we have to follow the rules and regulations of that particular country, but then we can go and do business anywhere. Similarly, any other countries can come to our country and do their business here. This depends on the economic policies of country, and of course they are laid by certain rules and regulations, right? We see now that many products we import from the other countries, right? Like that, we sell off many products of us, many ideas, cultures, like that. Everything can be exchanged from country to the other. The opportunities for labor and capital to locate anywhere in the world. We see that many people go to the other countries for work. Similarly, we see here people from many countries come here even for education, for work, like that. Right? This all is happening only because of globalization. The growth of global markets is really imaginary, right? As I've just now told you, the world has become a single stage, single place, right? Without no boundaries for imports and exports. We just look at a few aspects of globalization. Basically, what is happening in a globalization? Trade and transactions take place. Trade and transaction take place. Now, the capital in and investment movement, migration of the people from one country to the other country. We see that many Indians have gone abroad to either America, Australia, or any part of the world we can go. And in fact, we also see few of the foreign nationals come and do the business or settle down in our country and all. That migration of the people happens due to globalization. Similarly, dissemination of knowledge, sharing of knowledge, exchanging of knowledge, thereby developing, all happens due to globalization. Right? Um, right. Uh, what are the dimensions of globalization? You can say there are literally no dimensions. Anywhere, in any aspect, there is globalization. Economic globalization, political globalization, cultural globalization, ideological globalization. We can see globalization in any aspect of, uh, right? In any aspect, either economically, politically, culturally, ideological, anywhere there is globalization, right? Do you think globalization, the word has come only now, has taken place only during recent years? No, it is way back. So there is a very big history for globalization. It's not a new word or it's a word which has come in this modern world. Even during the ancient times, it has started from the ancient times, right? You'll be surprised to know about these things. So, to make this session quite interesting, we'll just have a look at the history of globalization. Have when we just talk about the history of like early history, have globalization has started in the early history, as I've just now told you. During ancient time itself, the globalization has started. Trade has taken place from one country to the other way back in the ancient times. Also, medieval age, we'll also just have a look at the pre-modern periods and modern period. Globalization during pre-modern period and modern period, and modern and globalization in this era, in this modern era. You also have a small look at India and globalization aspect, right? So first we'll start with the early history. You'll be surprised, but it is quite interesting. So globalization is basically a socio-economic term, which nowadays is synonymous with economic development of the country, right? So when we just see early history of globalization, just see here who are these: Alexander the Great and Chandragupta Maurya. Only during that days itself, globalization has started, right? Where it was a continuous process. In fact, it has started way back, but way back in the first century of Christian era, and it's still continuing. where there is an exchange of everything, right? Regarding our cultures, traditions, products, goods, ideas, all these things, technology, medicine, everything, right? Um, we just have a look at the history of globalization in this great era in the history, in the early history, in the early days. Alexander the Great forges eastward link with Chandragupta Maurya for overland routes between the Mediterranean, Persia, India, and Central Asia. We know that Alexander the Great has conquered the whole world, right? So through navigation, we have seen all these things, right? Central Asia. During the first century Christian era, the Transworld trade makers has made its first major appearance in China under the Han Dynasty and successfully established a trade relationship with Asian and European countries. It has started with a trade relationship between the Asian and European countries. The period from 650 to 850 AD records the expansion of Islam, the trade relationship with the West Mediterranean region, with the Indian subcontinent. Right? Way back in that 650 AD itself, we have seen all these things, a trade going on. The rise of Genghis Khan during 1100 AD gave rise to the integration of overland routes across Eurasia, Europe and Asia. Right? In the 1650s, marks the expansion of the slave trade. Right? Slave trade was expanded during 1650 AD, and it sustained the expansion of Atlantic economy. All across the Atlantic border, we had this exchange of economy, giving birth to integrated economic and industrial systems across the ocean. The period from 1776 to 1789 AD marks the US and French revolutions and the creation of modern state and fallout of military and business interests. These integrated empires expand during the Industrial Revolution. The 18th century marks the merging of modernity with globalization, and it also marks the foundation for the creation of international trade law. The international trade law means whenever there is a trade happening from one country to the other country, there were certain rules and regulations laid down, right? That happened way back in the 18th century itself, right? According to most scholars and researchers, it is the modern age which led to the origin of globalization. In this age, widespread of development has happened in the field of infrastructure and connectivity, right? Connecting through sea route, basically, right? Sea route. There was a connectivity from one country to the other country, sea route like that. This led to more interaction between the nations and sharing of ideas, culture, and tradition has taken place. All these put a direct impact on the process of globalization. Right? In the economic scenario, more trade links started taking place between the countries on a global scale, not from a country to a country, not from within the country. In a global scale, it has taken place, which influenced global as well as domestic economies to a greater extent. Right? Actually, there are few scholars who say that this globalization had a mark even in the ancient civilizations. The scholars who advocate this theory say that the example of earliest forms of globalization is the trade link between Sumerian civilization and Indus Valley civilization. During that time itself, there was a globalization, right? In the 3rd millennium BC. In fact, after this age, there was a numerous instances where trade links were established between various countries like India, Egypt, Greece, Roman Empire, and so on. There were regular business links between Parthian Empire, Roman Empire, and Han Dynasty, that is which belongs to China. The popularity of the trade relationship led to the development of various trade routes like Silk Route and so on. Right? This is about the early history of globalization. Right? So when it has come to the medieval age, uh, that medieval age we can mostly call it as the Islamic period, right? Where we had many Islamic rulers across the globe. The Islamic period in the modern medieval era is an important approach to the history of globalization. This was when Jewish and the Muslim traders started going to various parts of the world to sell their various items. Right? We have seen this even in the history. And this is all nothing but globalization, which had roots way back from the ancient period to the medieval period and so on. This led to the blend of ideas, traditions, and customs. In China, the first postal service was introduced and paper was invented. This led to better knowledge of sharing, and even we have started using paper from then on. As more and more people started traveling to various countries across the world, it led to more communication between people. Before, there used to be on communication only through the people, but after this paper has been invented, a faster communication and a clear communication was possible, and more of exchanging of ideas and relationship have been built up. Explorers like Columbus, Vasco da Gama sailed through oceans in search of new countries and established trade links with them to make other countries their colonies. We have to seen about colonies in our history, right? These are all happened only because of globalization. All these factors were major cause for development of pre-globalization era. The medieval period was age of discovery. It was a period that Africa, Eurasia engaged in cultural economic exchange between them. Gradually, this led to the growth of colonies in various parts of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. As a result, there was a constant blend of ideas, languages, rituals, customs between the natives and foreign inhabitants. In fact, this system of colonization put a deep impact on agriculture, trade, ecology, and culture on a global scale. Right? That is about history, like globalization in the medieval period. Because of invention of paper, communication has taken a place very fast, and discovering the various country through the sea route and all also led to the globalization. Right? We have a just look at the pre-modern period to modern period. This is a period where industrial revolution has taken place in the 19th century. It is the major period in the history of globalization. Due to the industrial revolution, there was a significant increase in the quantity and quality of products. So there was a competition also, and hence more and more products used to come out. This led to higher exports and better trade and business relations. Due to this better products and colonization, lots of countries across the world became the consumers of European market. Right? Even even our country is greatly influenced by this globalization or industrial revolution way back from British period. Right? That is in the 19th century. The phase of pre-globalization perhaps came to an end after First World War was fought. The war was put at a significant adverse effects of economic scenario, and it led to a Great Depression and gold standard crisis in the later part of 20s and early 30s. So after that, it has got slowly gained its importance and then got stabilized. Right now, when we talk about globalization in the modern era, globalization in the modern sense of term came into existence after the Second World War. Right? There was lots of economic devastation, and then afterwards, um, after the Second World War, there is a faster growth in the pace with which globalization has happened, and from then on, we have seen the economical progress throughout the world. Right? One of the main factors for this was the plan by the world leaders to break down the borders for fostering trade relationship between the nations. It was also in this period that major countries like India, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and some countries in South America gained independence. As a result, these countries too started their own trade across the country. Right? Own they have we have our own economic system after our independence has come out. After we were independent, we had started our own economic policies, own economic systems, uh, own trade relationship with the rest of the world. Even now we see that India buying a product from Russia, and we giving our products, exporting of cotton, jute, all these things to the other countries like that. This all happened only after, of course, after the independence, we had our own policies. This happened long back. After independence, uh, we could just develop on the pace with which we could economically progress because of globalization. The establishment of UNO, United Nations Organization, was also a major step in this regard. Right? Gradually, we have seen the economic scenario of the world strengthen, and it led to better trade relationship and communication. Right? Some of the factors we can just talk about here, which have put a positive impact on globalization, are promotion of free commerce and trade, abolition of various double taxes, tariffs, and capital controls, reduction of transport cost, and development of infrastructure. Right? We have now a number of what you call flights moving on from one country to the other country, ship moving from one country to the other country. So you have a competitive market, and so the prices and tariffs have come down comparatively. Creation of global corporations, blend of culture and traditions across the countries. Uh, these are all happened because of globalization. Another milestone in the history of globalization is creation of WTO, World Trade Organization, right? Which lead which led to the growth of uniform platform to settle trade and commerce disputes. According to economic surveys, the world exports improved significantly due to globalization. Right? This is all about the history of globalization, early history, medieval history, pre-medieval to modern and modern era. We'll have a quick view about India and globalization. How could India progress because of globalization? Right? The wake of globalization was first felt in India in 1990s, when then the finance minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, initiated the move. Right? He has taken a bold step and initiated economic liberalization plan. Since then, India has gradually become one of the economic giants in the world today. It has become one of the fastest growing economies in the world, with an average growth rate around 6 to 7% annually. This has also been a significant rise in per capita income and standard of living. Poverty has reduced by 10%. Right? The service industry has a share of 54% in the annual gross domestic product. We must be very happy about this. While industrial and agricultural sector has a share of 29% and 17% respectively. Due to the process of globalization, the exports have also improved significantly. Globalization has really out of a positive impact on today's economy and is expected to develop in the years to come. Right? So we had to feel very happy about our country's development because of globalization, right? We see now that many MNCs, multinational companies, have set up their offices, their basic major offices in and around India, in India, right? In Hyderabad, Bangalore, when we see Delhi, Pune, like that, we see a number of multinational companies who have come and set up their firms here, to firms here, so that right to develop a good relationship. And we see many of our country people are working in the MNCs, and our economic growth is developing very fast. Is happening very fast. Now that we have got, after Modi ji has come, we have seen the Make in India concept, where we are trying to reduce the imports, and then we are trying to be self-reliant, such that um, we reduce the imports, increase on the export, and our economy. It's a process of increasing our economy in a greater way, right? Now that we have seen, we now in the recent times, in these 3 months of Corona period, what we are seeing is, because this coronavirus has happened in Wuhan, and most of the countries across the globe are not happy with the China, or the Chinese products, or the China carrying over the virus to across all the countries in the world. So they want to ship their operations which are there in China to uh, other parts of the world. So India has welcomed the issue, and we hope in the coming years, many of the companies, they set up their office in India and work from India, so that um, I surely positively hope most of our youth will get jobs in these companies, and our unemployment problem will slowly go down. Right? I hope there is much positivity coming across India during these days, and of course to the coming years. Right? This is what is about history of globalization. Now we'll look into few more aspects of this. Right. Reasons for globalization. What is the reason? What is the purpose we want to go for globalization? Is better resources, low cost production, dilution of local market, operating internationally, market expansion, and increased product. You see, we might be having few resources, the other countries might be having few more resources. So if you want to set up any factory or company, we mostly see most of the machinery is imported, right? Most of the resources are imported. So even we, similarly, if any other country has scales of products, we export these things. You know, it's really surprising to see Singapore is the most developed country. There, they import even water. They don't have a resource of their own. They import all the resources from the rest of the world, and it's really like a man-built heaven developed by the exchange of resource, by importing the resources from all other countries. Right? When we exchange the resources from the other countries, there is no need to build up a resource of our own. Then, of course, we can come down on the cost of production also. So, uh, the exchange of goods and services operating internationally, we know now that most of the software companies which are set up in India, they support the market globally, right? So it's what you call operating internationally, market expansion, and increased profit, of course. Right. We'll just have a look at what is the good and the bad of globalization. There are certain disadvantages also due to globalization. So before going into disadvantages, we'll just have look at what are the good things about it. The good things about the globalization is increased productivity, as we have seen, high standards of living, increased flow of foreign capital, increased competition. Obviously, we go for a product which is more, which has more quality and has less price. So competition is also increased. Increase in the foreign trade, induce domestic competition. Right. We also have few drawbacks. That is takeover of the national firms. Right. When we see here, I'll just give you a simple example. If at all we see the mobile from China is costing less, what we do generally, we go and purchase some Chinese product for lesser price, right? Thereby our market is going down. Similarly, a small product, we'll talk about even crackers. Um, we see the China product crackers, now that more that Diwali is coming, we see the crackers mostly are imported from China. They do a large, what you call, noise. And what this is, comparatively, they are, we can get them at a cheaper price also. So generally you go for it. Thereby our own product won't be sold out. So that is a major drawback of this globalization, takeover of national firms. So they dominate. So whichever is cheaper, we go and buy that. So thereby our own market is going down. Brings instability, impact on traditional industries. Right? Just now given you an example. It also affects small industries, as I have just told you, this crackers industry or whatever, the dolls industry, toys, all these things. When we get it from the other countries, basically we are not just getting from China. Most of the products, this plastic product, we see China bazaar at each and every corner of the street. Right? They sell rupee one product to, right? But here, thereby even our small scale industries are getting affected badly. Right? Um, Again, it widens disparity and cultural impact. Right? We also see here, even right from the toothpaste or any product as a matter of fact, soaps, toothpaste, cosmetics, any product we see, we have mostly these foreign brands coming into picture. Even the food industry, we see many foreign brands coming, like Subway or whatever it is, coming and occupying our market. Thereby our traditional foods are all, the market is going down. This is really a point to ponder for. So uh, now we mostly must think of make in India concept, take in India concept. Uh, right? So there is a and make in India concept. You buy only Indian products, don't buy Chinese products, like that. All these things are going on because now that we are able to find the disparity between countries, right? Right. We'll just have a look at globalization of Indian economy. Indian economy adopted the policy of restriction after the independence. But in 91, as I just have told you, due to Manmohan Singh, when the Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister of India, uh, there was a great economic crisis. So we have opened the doors for all the countries. Due to the economic crisis, the government of India decided to open its market to foreign investment. From then only, we have seen many foreign companies coming and investing in India, in our country. Right? The new economic policy adopted had an impact on every sector of Indian economy, on every sector, right from car manufacturing, anything, textile man, everything. We have opened door for everything, in telecoms or whatever it is. So there was a progress in our economy after 91. So the credit goes to Dr. Manmohan ji. Major policy changes. So when we have opened the doors, what was the policy changes that has happened is abolishing of licenses, dilution of MRTP Act, foreign investment has been encouraged, fiscal reforms were adopted, external sector reforms, outward looking policy, public sector reforms. These are all made after 1991, right? What is the impact of globalization? The impact of globalization is rapid growth in the business, opportunity to grow global. We see here at least one in a family will be working anywhere in the globe, right? That has happened only because of this. Introduction of various new technologies, rise in the access of technology in rural area, new technology in the agriculture sector also, literate farmers, rise in literacy rate, right? We also see this rise in the literacy rate. Now India is progressing highly in the literacy rate. Most of the Indian people are getting educated now. Disparity in the society, ethical responsibility of business has been diminished, price hike of every daily usable commodities, right? We see, uh, basically I can just give an example here, petrol price, petrol and diesel price. On a daily basis, they keep on changing, right? The local business has perished, high growth problem, but the problem of unemployment affected the agricultural sector, right? Of course, now we are progressing even in that, right? Uh, right. Now, what all we have seen here is today's lecture. Globalization has increased the trade of products, ideas, technologies, etc., and created the world without boundaries. But it also had some negative impact, as just now we have seen in the developing countries. This local market will go down, right? That is the problem, and hence now we have to even focus on um, make in India concept, so that the local market will not go down. Flowing with globalization, India is shining nearly in every aspect. India is getting a global recognition and slowly moving towards to become a major economic and political strength. Though the development is progressing rapidly, still many basic problems like rural poverty, corruption, and political instability remain unsolved. We hope all these problems will be solved very soon, right? Now that even rural, there is a high literacy rate even in the rural areas. We hope the rural, and also in Telangana especially, there is a very good development in the irrigation sector. We hope that rural poverty will not be there in the future. The coming future, we don't talk about this rural poverty. That has to go away, right? Corruption, and when we talk about the ethical practices, the corruption will always will naturally must go down, right? So when we really seriously and honestly work on this, we can surely achieve still more success and progress economically, right? That is what about hoping positively and concluding the session positively. We'll just have a quick review of what all we have seen today. We have seen what is globalization, history of globalization, very interestingly, earlier history, medieval period, pre-medieval to medieval, and modern age globalization. You've also seen what is the need for globalization, uh, the goods and bads, advantages and disadvantages, positives and negatives of that, and concluding today's class with a positive note. See you tomorrow. Bye and thank you.